Hey everyone, yeah, I'm starting to come back on here. It's definitely going to be a little different here. I don't know where where to begin with it. I'll say I'm back mainly because over the last 6 months there have been some really awesome people who have been very encouraging, sending me messages here and there. And it really just got to a point where I still saw that there's a crowd out there who, you know, definitely understands what this channel is about. You know, it's kind of hard to ignore now, you know, and I'd be lying to say if I wasn't a Resident Evil fan still in some way. Though the motivation to do this channel has changed, and I think that for me, the beginning of this channel was definitely started off as a hype channel, but I was actually genuinely hyped, and it took quite a lot of time to even start getting more subs and views, and at the end of the day it still wasn't enough. But that is another motivation that I had, was it wasn't about getting as many views and subs and things like that. The only motivation to get more views and subs was to have more influence in the fan base, and effectively maybe more influence to Capcom, and that seemed to not really work. That strategy didn't work, and I try to be fair and balanced, because I feel like if you're on an extreme end of hating Capcom and not having any substance on that end, just hating Capcom for the sake of being pissed off. But then on the other side, the other extreme is just being totally positive and dismissive of potential negatives for new games coming out and the future of the series. So I tried to be more in the middle, and I thought maybe like what motivated me for that was to have more reasonable discussion. And I thought also, if I'm being actually honest about positive and negatives, that would gain credibility and maybe some integrity from the fan base. And so in my experience in the last 3.5 years that I've been online with all this stuff, so prominently putting my face out there, doing all that, because that was another thing. I wanted to put my face out there because I felt like it's more compelling than not doing it. That doesn't mean that you can't have a voice and cannot have great points, you know, without like just doing voiceovers and stuff. But I just know it doesn't work for me. You know, I work more on my being genuine and authentic, and I think that comes through, you know, seeing me and everything like that. So I did take it really seriously, because the series means a lot to me. I'll just always keep reiterating that. I've been a fan since 1997, and honestly, there are so many reasons why I was a mega fan of Resident Evil for a long time, so I'm not going to rehash that, but it does become more than just a game, and I totally understand that sentiment of, oh, Resident Evil is just a game, you know, so don't get all upset about it and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, you're right. So I took that advice for sure, and just totally backed away from the channel for like 6 months, and I had trust me, no intentions to come back. So the last long ass video I did a month ago, basically a podcast, was really just at that moment where I was like, let me say things that I may regret, and I actually don't regret them. The other motivation I had for this channel was to have more tact in how I address things. I think for the majority of the channel it was like that. I think by the time 2018 came around, I was really disgruntled, and you know, because we hadn't had the news that the RE2 remake was still even being worked on right up until E3, and I said this last time. It looked like it could be canceled. Like, we didn't hear anything about it, and you've heard in other game series, they get really into it and then they cancel it because of whatever happens. So So they did a good job at keeping everything a secret, you know, at Capcom. So I was really disgruntled with that, but most importantly, I was disgruntled with the larger fan base. And I really felt like at the beginning of my channel, I really felt, and I'm talking a lot about the community and the fan base, because that's actually one of the unexpected things. I wanted to see like a community people come together with Resident Evil, but I kind of understood why it's so hard to do that, because everyone just has so many opinions. Some people can be very aggressive, how they come across. So by the beginning of my channel, I perceived that there was a good balance. I mean, like there were still people that I felt were unreasonable and aggressive and things like that. But in my honest opinion, this year showed to me that is now the dominant part of the fan base. They're very adversarial. And I'm not saying everyone, but I'm just saying it's the dominant part. So if we want to say 51% of the fan base, there you go. It's probably more, but it is so hard to that was why I was Resident Evil Talk, because I used to like to talk about it. But then ever since maybe later 2017, definitely all this year, it became a negative thing, because every time you wanted to bring it up, people just are being very adversarial, to say, and that's a nice way of putting it. So after months and months of that, it's like, wait, why am I doing this anymore? And I do think it's not all on the fans. Like, I do not ultimately blame fans, and I think it's you know, it's also Capcom does cultivate their fan base based on their decisions that they make and what they say in interviews publicly. And I feel like they're validating that part of the fan base. They have, in many ways. I'm probably not going to go into specifics today about it. So I'm just, I know I'm like 10 minutes in, so I'm just saying, like, this is why well, those are the reasons why I stopped doing it. But the reason why I'm coming back is because I still see I'm getting these comments, you know, just recently. Here's one: don't delete your channel. Unlike our other RA channels, you're the only one that doesn't play to all the hype and clickbait. And that's a whole subject for another day, but that's someone's comment. I've had some longer comments, so I'm not going to read all of them. But it's basically the same sentiment of, like, people being kind of disgruntled, definitely in light of Resident Evil 7 and in light of Resident Evil 2 remake. And I think that that's kind of the dark side of hype trains and things. It seems like if you're not hyped, like that's the problem I have with other channels. It feels like if you're not totally hyped, like, don't get me wrong, I have a subdued excitement about Resident Evil 2 remake, and I say subdued because I've been in it for over 20 years, and I've been burnt out from the hype before, you know, where it did not pay off, and I kind of had a delusionary, like Resident Evil 5, I always kind of like go back to that, because, oh man, I was so fucking hyped for Resident Evil 5. It looked like a fucking movie. I was like, this is the first time Resident Evil is like really mainstream, and I was so excited, and it came at a lot of costs. That said, you know, the negatives that I would say about Resident Evil 5, like the co-op in the main campaign, and more action-focused, you know, is not in Resident Evil 2 Remake. So we'll talk about that maybe another time. But I just kind of wanted to address, like, what is making me come back, and what's motivating me is because there's still a place for fair and balanced reviews of things. And I think, of course, right now we are in a hype. It's still in the hype bubble. Every time a game comes out, there's this hype bubble. Resident Evil 7 is probably a good example of that, because I think that before the game came out, I think there was a lot of hype, you know, and I think you see that bubble deflate after about a month or two, you know, from the mainstream, and then it kind of dissipates from there. And then what happens is that it's not until months later, and sometimes other games years later, decades later, that people start talking about, oh, the downfall of the series, or the, you know, what went wrong, you know, those videos. And so I'm here to kind of like keep things level-headed and so that things don't get off track. And that was the biggest motivation of all why I started this channel, because I did love it so much, and I didn't want the series to go through what it went through between RE5, RE6, and the Revelations games, and that whole time period where it just felt like Resident Evil was really on a downfall tailspin problem. And what was it, in 2014, there was like this big, and this is kind of when I wasn't even really paying attention, actually, because 2014 I was like out the door. But later on I heard of that there was really big speculation that I think it was something like Capcom was going to go bankrupt, and it was probably a really bad time for Capcom. So that's where I came in 2015 and was like, okay, so let's avoid that this time. And I thought that would be appreciated, you know, by the fan base, by majority, and I have to say, it started out that way, and in the last year, I don't know what happened, but and I did get sucked into it, so I can see why if people came in at 2018, I had very little tact, you know, on addressing the series and some controversial things. I had really bad tact at some points. Case in point, last video, you know, I wish I could say things better, but at some point, just shit has to get said right. So that's that podcast and everything. So, but I'm ultimately here and that's actually what's different is, I guess I'm not really here anymore in the capacity of caring about the series anymore. I think in light of RE7 and RE2, I see that, you know what, Capcom's just fine doing their thing, and I do think that the fans had a lot of influence in those games. I mean, RE2 Remake hasn't even come out, but I'm definitely going to give it a fair chance, but fair chance. Emphasis on fair, okay? Fair doesn't mean that if I point out something that I find as a negative thing, that it's labeled as nitpicking. I saw a prominent... I'm like going on all these tangents. I'm just going with the flow, okay? This is how I was like in my first couple years. I just don't care to be all like careful about it. But it's stuff like this, like there was a prominent, very prominent fan page that tweeted out something about like, if we point out our issues with having all these overlays and stuff on RE2, and that now is seen as nitpicking, because it's nitpicking to do that. And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, that I must not like new games. I must not like new games because I criticize. It was such a glib like tweet that it just. And the scary thing is that was a big fan page, you know, and that's what I'm just like, this is not, I see what, like, to their credit, like, I see what they're trying to do, and they're trying to do this, like, it was a really actually jumbled comparison. It wasn't really good, but I see what they were trying to get at, and I agree with someone trying to point out hypocrisies. Although that wasn't really hypocrisy. There was a lot. It was a lot more complex of a thing. So I'm just bringing that up to say, like, it's just really disheartening, to see the least, that people that get the most traffic, in my opinion, do a lot of damage because it's like people just are fueling the fan hate, and they say, and then they go on this thing like, oh, the toxicity is people like me, people that criticize things, and it's seen as nitpicking, and I guess that's when really at the end of the day, that's not how I approached it. I did fair and balanced. I did it respectfully for a long time. I still think I did respectfully. If I kind of seemed adversarial, it was in defense, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm criticizing games so that they learn from mistakes and it doesn't snowball into a bigger problem later, which is what I'm getting at with the nitpicking thing. Is like, it's not nitpicking to me, because there have been too many times with this series too where it started off like a small problem and then it went out of control. And I think as early as Resident Evil 4, that's a whole controversial thing when you bring up like the action and horror elements. I still think it's a horror game, but it definitely has more increased action elements, which I find are different things, but still a horror game. But if people pointed out more about, I think people tried, but I think it got stifled. You know, it's like it got stifled, and then what happened is the series got more action oriented, and we had Resident Evil 6, and I think objectively speaking, most people do find many flaws with that game. So that's where I come in, and that's where we all come in. That's why I'm back, because like I see there's still a place for it. I still get, every month I'm still getting messages about, you know, coming back, or so you know who you are. Thank you guys so much. I don't know if you got my replies, because YouTube's kind of weird now. I saw that I had channel comments, not on a video, but channel comments, but it looks like they got rid of that, so I tried to reply to them. So, but anyway, I don't know if I made a solid point, so let me try to wrap it up at 16 minutes here. I guess what I'm saying is I'm kind of going back to 2015 me. I have no aspirations for views and subs, because the only reason why I had that aspiration was to have that influence with the series and hope to, and I think, and that's what I was saying before, like, I think we have had a lot of influence, but in other ways we haven't, and we haven't been heard, and there's a lot of, and I think I understand from the other side too, that some people just aren't really good at articulating why they don't like something, so may come off as nitpicking. So that's also where I step in, is to say, like, no, they're not crazy. Like, here's a million reasons why they're bringing it up. So I'll leave you with that. Like, actually, I'll ask people, especially, you know, the people that have been in touch with me who want a more interesting discussion about the pros and the cons of something. I want to hear from the disgruntled people about the series at this current time. And I want to hear, like, what, you know, your issues are with RE2 Remake even, because I still get those emails and things. So, and that's kind of, I'll be that person, you know, because it's just, I feel like it's needed, you know. So leave a comment and try to be as respectful as you can, and try to be as thoughtful as you can, because, and to other people's credit too, it's like social media does not really help to be detailed and thoughtful and respectful. It seems like social media actually promotes more just negativity, honestly. So I can see where, like, and that's why that's another motivation. I keep going on, but that was another motivation to start my channel, was that my comments could be like, look at me, I'm talking 20 minutes about a video game, right? So like, my comments could be so long. I could write blogs and stuff, but no one reads that shit. It doesn't do anything. So like, that's why I did this, you know. I did a YouTube channel to get above, you know, these one-line comments that are just really negative, and they get upvoted, and I think it perpetuates toxicity in the fan base. And to tie up that, I think the toxicity is not, you know, hating on a company or hating on a game, if you want to look at it like that, but I would say critiquing a game or critiquing a company. But the toxicity is the fan hate and being aggressive, and being the aggressor and just going after fans. You're defending a game, but then you're attacking people personally. So, but I just say that I want to hear from people that are disgruntled about things. My channel is really run on motivation from motivation from other people, but I have no hope. I have no reason to hype things anymore. I have no reason to insert my my ideas or other people's ideas that I think are good to better the series. I'm just here as more of you know, community fan base, and just to keep that part, you know, not in the series. Like, you don't have to buy the games anymore, or you don't have to, but you know, I think that we're invested not even just in this series, but just to the betterment of entertainment as a whole, you know, not just video games, but just realizing, like, it's the same drivel that we get all the time through video games, through movies. It's just, it's like there's less and less these days. It seems that there's things that are unique, you know what I mean? So I think that's what we're trying to keep alive and things like that. So again, just let me know. Okay, 20 minutes, so I'll talk about some other details another time. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has been very encouraging. That's what I wanted to really emphasize, is that my channel is run on encouragement. So because I don't like putting myself out there, I feel like it was needed. So but I'll come back in whatever capacity whatever capacity that ends up being, whether it's exclusive to the series or, you know, other video game series and things like that. And I'll just keep you informed. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you around. I'm also on Twitch, so I do stream regularly on Twitch, I would say. So the links will be in the description below. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you later. Bye.